Welcome to Private Club Radio, your weekly source for industry education, news and discussion. Broadcasting from Tampa, Florida, ladies and gentlemen, here is your host, Gabriel Aloisi.
Welcome to Private Club Radio, episode 152, and I am back in Tampa after basically a month away. Speaking at the European Conference on Club Management, it was a wonderful time. You might have seen on Instagram, if you were following me, or on Twitter or Facebook, that I was on a camel in the Moroccan desert in the Sahara. I was on the Portuguese coastline. I was standing on the Rock of Gibraltar and all over the English and Wales countryside. And as great as that trip was, it is wonderful to be back here in Tampa, back home. There's no place like home, and I'm sure you can relate. But it was a great time, especially at the European Conference on Club Management. Big congratulations to Toby Johansson for putting on a great show, and the rest of the team, Debbie Goddard and the other folks at the CMAE. Really enjoyed a lot of the sessions. Got to see my buddy Norm Spitzig over there as well. He spoke on Tuesday to help wrap the conference up, and it was a really, really good time had by all. Well, on this episode of Private Club Radio, we're going to be joined by the folks from the National Club Association. First off, we'll have Henry Wallmeyer talking about an extremely cool partnership that they have struck up, as well as some details of their upcoming National Club Conference in 2019 in Washington, D.C. We'll also have Brad Steele giving us an election recap on this episode, so you can find out what our November elections will foretell for the private club industry here moving forward over the next couple of years. It's going to be a really wonderful episode. Stay tuned, and I will catch you on the flip side of these two interviews.
And now, it's time for Club Perspectives, presented by the National Club Association.
Welcome to another edition of Club Perspectives, presented by the National Club Association. I'm excited to be joined today by Henry Wallmeyer. Henry, how are you?
I'm doing great, Gabe. How are you, sir?
Fantastic. And it's a crazy time right now up in D.C., but you've got some amazing things happening with the National Club Association. First thing is you're now partnered with a new magazine, Eloquence Magazine. I'd love to talk to you about that one, Henry.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a lot of things going on outside of our normal government relations and lobbying activities, and happy to talk to you about them. Eloquence Magazine is a lifestyle magazine that celebrates the private club and affluent lifestyle. And we're very excited to be able to partner with them to provide our members the first ever lifestyle magazine for the private club industry. And we've been working with them for a couple of years. They actually did a feature on me and on the association, and really on private clubs and how they've changed over the last 10 years or so, and what they're doing for families and for their members. And so from there, we took it and said, let's make this even stronger. Let's put this information out in front of our members. And so we have the opportunity now to provide our members with articles and stories that are celebrating the finer things, such as the tennis and yachting, golf, food and beverage, culture, philanthropy, arts, all these things that are related to private clubs, and gives us a different voice, to be able to again show the great works of private clubs and what they do and how they can benefit an entire community. And we even had the first issue has just come out. It was mailed last week. It is going to all NCA members. There's going to be some stories in there that talk about Sleepy Hollow Country Club, the Jonathan Club. Also covers a couple of speakers that we had at our conference, Bill Walsh, the CEO of the Viceroy Hotel Group, and Chip Brewer, the CEO of Callaway. And then also talks about the stained glass and paintings at the University Club of Chicago and the art. And so it provides a different avenue for more about private clubs and more about the National Club Association and who we are and what we do. And we're just very excited for it. We've had a lot of clubs who have come to us and said, hey, how can we be featured in this magazine? I want to be a part of it. And then also they wanted to know how they can share this magazine with all of their members at the club. And so there are opportunities for both of those. And we're very excited, to work with clubs to see, and if they do want to be featured, or if, they want to have the magazine sent to their entire membership as a benefit, to their members. So there's a lot going on, with this magazine, and I think, mainly it is really going to be able to help us, increase and build the presence of the National Club Association as well as the private clubs and the industry overall.
Yeah, it's always important, I think, as a manager or sitting on a board, just to know what trends are going on in the world. And I think a magazine like that will go a long way to keeping you abreast of the situation. It helps you make better decisions in leadership roles, I think, when you know what people really want. So I'm excited to read it.
Absolutely, and the thing is, it's a extremely impressive magazine physically. It's usually, I think, about 200 or so pages. It is, coffee table book quality. So it's something that you are going to be proud to be a part of, and people are going to look at it and say, "Wow, this is something special." It's not a typical, weekly magazine or monthly magazine. This is very hefty magazine that does show very, very well, and again just builds that that presence of who the National Club Association is and who we are as an industry.
That's awesome. That's really cool. It reminds me of my Departures magazine. American Express sends me quarterly. It's pretty cool. It's big and oversized, really nice paper.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing you guys have happening is the McMahon Awards of Club Management Awards that you're partnering with. Tell us a little bit about that, Henry.
Another thing that, again, we're super excited about. We are pleased to partner with McMahon Group as well as Club and Resort Business to be a co-sponsor of the Excellence in Club Management Awards. I think many of the listeners, and I know many of the people that you've had as guests, have been award recipients of these very prestigious awards. And this gives us the opportunity to really, shine light on the managers that have excelled, at their various clubs, and really say, hey, this is what we should be promoting, in the club industry. These managers, these men and women who have done amazing things at their clubs, who have, put their clubs up on a pedestal as, as the best of the best. And so we had the opportunity to, to partner, like I said, with McMahon and with Club and Resort Business, and we, we jumped at that because we just really felt that the significance behind these awards, as well as the quality, was something that really represents, NCA, as well as our members. And we're going to be promoting the awards. We're going to be encouraging, all of our members to have their managers nominated, whether it is a general manager or whether it is an assistant general manager, a rising star. Because we do want to see, the people who deserve to be recognized. We want them to be in the spotlight and be recognized. And one of the interesting things that we're also doing with it is the winners, of the awards each year. There's 4 winners, 4 different categories, and those 4 winners are going to then make up a panel group at our National Club Conference every year. So we're excited to be able to, promote these awards, be a part of it, and then, showcase these winners at our conference every year as part of a panel, so that they can, tell their colleagues what they've done to be an award winner, what they've done to be successful, how their, fellow managers can, take from them and ideally implement it back at their club, so that they too can continue to be successul.
That's going to be a really fun thing at the national conference, and it's going to be in DC this year, I know. Can you give us just a couple of the highlights, Henry, so we get ready for what's coming down the pipe?
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to be here in Washington, D.C., April 28th through the 30th. So we're looking forward to inviting everybody to our hometown. We've got some great things lined up. We're still working on finalizing the full schedule, but I know we've got some great speakers that are very D.C.-centric. We've got some events that are taking place at some very, very unique places, and we think that we're going to put together something that a manager and or a board member who comes to this conference is going to say, wow, I'm glad I did, because I couldn't go to those things or do those things in DC unless I came to this conference. And that's what we're really looking to put on a once in a lifetime experience. We're still finalizing everything, and then we'll be opening registration the 1st of November. So once we have all of that done and registrations open, I'll be happy to come back on and really give a deep dive into all of the educational sessions that we have, the speakers, the networking events, and the locations where we'll be here around the city.
We'd love to have you back on, Henry, and I invite listeners to check out our recap shows. We had 3 of those over the summer where we recapped what happened at the NCA conference. It was out in Los Angeles this year, and I'm really looking forward to going back home to Washington, D.C. this coming year in 2019. So I'll be there. I hope you'll be there, and definitely check out nationalclub.org to learn more as details get dripped out to the public. Henry, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to speak with you, and hope to do it again real soon.
Absolutely, Gabe. Thank you so much. Keep up the great work, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Awesome, Henry. And now let's turn it over to Brad Steele, Vice President of Government Relations for the National Club Association. He's going to give us the election recap. Brad was kind enough to phone this one in to our voicemail while I was in Europe, and here's what Brad had to say.
Well, hello, Gabe. It's always a pleasure to spend some time with you and your listeners, and I know we're going to have some fun talking a little bit about what took place on November 6th. Well, to say the least, it was an interesting evening, to say the least is right. I don't know that there was much that was a surprise with regard to the outcome in both the House of Representatives and in the Senate midterm elections. Somewhat anticlimactic in the House, as the expectation was that the Democrats would be able to prevail and take control. This is the 4th time that there has been a change in the control of the House of Representatives since 1994. So, Democrats now have control. They will do so starting January 3rd, 2019. I would anticipate that Nancy Pelosi, a Democrat from California, specifically the San Francisco area, will once again regain the Speaker's gavel. I would also expect that the Democrats will not have a terribly large working majority. Now, they've gained a number of seats in this particular election. Right now, the total Democratic numbers are about 38 seats that they've picked up. A total of about 41, but net was 38. There's still about 4 seats that are still yet to be determined. I would expect that there's a good opportunity for maybe one Republican to be successful out of those 4, maybe 3 more Democratic seats. So they may reach a net of 41. But at the end of the day, right now, what we're looking at is approximately a 14, maybe to 17 seat working majority. What does that mean? Well, you know that any bill that passes the House of Representatives must get 218 votes. So if the Democrats currently have 235 or so when all the dust has settled, then they're looking at only 17 seats or maybe a little less and 17 votes that can not side with Nancy Pelosi and still pass legislation. We've seen with the Republicans when they were in control, they had about a 22 seat majority. That means they could lose 22 of their members and still pass legislation. Yet with the Republican Freedom Caucus being about 25 members, there was always a question of whether Speaker Ryan was going to be able to actually have enough to get to that 218 magic number. Now with the Democrats in control and maybe a 16 or 17 seat working majority, it may be the same kind of issue for a speaker, presumptive Speaker Nancy Pelosi when she deals with legislative initiatives. If she loses those 16 or 17 members, she's not going to be able to reach 218. Obviously at that point she would look to Republicans to provide the additional votes, and I think we all know in this particular environment there's no way that Democrats are going to be able to convince any Republican to join them on legislation. So, as I say, it'll be interesting as things shake out. Again, 4 seats that are still yet to be called, races that are yet to be called in the House of Representatives, but clearly the Democrats are in control. It wasn't, at the end of the day, a blue wave. It certainly was a race where Republicans got really, really wet. So I don't know that we would call it a wave. Traditionally, in the first midterm election of a president's term, the House members who were part of that president's party will lose about 33 seats, at least on average in 18 of the last 20 midterm elections. So this is about right. If the Democrats reach the total of 41, it's a little larger. But right now at 38 seats, I would expect that that's pretty much right in that average number. So not a shocking success for the Democrats with regard to the total numbers, but certainly they clearly had the message that resonated with voters. And most importantly, those voters were in suburban districts. So we looked at one race that was very, very important, Kentucky 6, that was held by Representative Andy Barr, a Republican who'd been there for 3 terms, had an exceptional candidate running against him. Amy McGrath was a Democrat. She's a bona fide war hero. And she had an outstanding campaign plan, followed through on it, and the district is a suburban district. So it was really the bellwether for the evening. And because it happened to be in Kentucky, Kentucky is one of the earliest states to provide its election results. And as such, we really had an opportunity to know right off the bat whether this was going to be a real big blue wave, or again, if it was just going to be an opportunity for Democrats to take control with maybe a less than what they had hoped for in a working margin majority. When the dust settled in that particular race, Kentucky 6, Andy Barr did win. But when we saw the inroads that Amy McGrath had made as the Democratic candidate in a suburban district, really talking about health care issues and the Republicans' sort of desire to, at least as the Democratic candidate said, remove any security for those with pre-existing conditions in healthcare, and with the ability to consistently talk about immigration and the president's demeanor, I think that caused a lot of folks, at least in Kentucky's 6th congressional district, to think long and hard before they supported Andy Barr. While the Democrats were not able to secure that particular seat, they sure as heck did in many other of those suburban districts. And interestingly enough, the National Club Association and our club pack supported members like Pete Sessions from Texas, the Dallas area. Pete Sessions was the chairman of the House Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is the most important committee in the House. Why? Because it establishes the rule under which legislation is brought to the House floor. How many amendments can be presented, how long the debate can be, whether it can be returned to the Committee of Jurisdiction for additional work. So that committee is exceptionally important, and his constituents in the Dallas suburbs certainly knew how important Pete Sessions was, not only to the workings of the House, but to them as constituents. But he, again, in that district, in that kind of district, was up against a very, very credible Democratic candidate, and he lost. So we know that the things that were harped on very well in Kentucky 6 just didn't really provide Amy McGrath enough votes to beat the incumbent Republican, but it sure as heck worked in places like Texas and other suburban districts across the United States. And that's where you saw most of those individuals who lost with an R by their name. And they were in suburban areas that just didn't quite come through, again, because of those 3 aspects. Maybe the healthcare vote that they had, they weren't able to communicate exactly why and what they were really supportive of. Additionally, the immigration issue, and then some of the demeanor and tenor of the president, I don't think worked in their favor. So one of our main allies, one of our strong supporters, was a Republican from Florida, Carlos Curbelo, who is in the Keys area, so southern Florida and the Keys area. Ultimately, I think he said it best, that at the end of the day, he lost based on those 3 issues. And even though the president may have been really the deciding factor in the Florida gubernatorial race and in the Florida senator's race, the reality is that he didn't help in that particular district for Carlos Curbelo. So it's an interesting dichotomy. You look at what happened in the House and you understand that those suburban districts just couldn't pull out of that messaging issue that they ran into, healthcare, immigration, and some of the president's comments. However, when you look at the Senate, boy, you see a lot of individuals who were expected to win. They were running in red states against Democrats who were the incumbents. And they really benefited from the comments made by the president and the activities that had gone on in about the month or 2 months leading up to the elections here in Washington. So I think, it was an interesting sort of juxtaposition. You've got the Senate, some of them really where it's a great place for the president to come and to spend some time and to talk about the issues that are important to him. And in the House, boy, it really wasn't. In those suburban districts, that just was not going to play well. And it turned out that it didn't in the House. But as I say, in the Senate side, and let's turn to that now, boy, we had it was a good day. It was a good day simply because those races that were expected to fall in a pro-growth way did. And that included North Dakota. That included the state of Indiana. And we assume it's still, again, too close to call, but expect that Florida will also flip to pro-growth, pro-club member. We supported Governor Scott in Florida. The Club PAC did. And we certainly supported Representative Kevin Cramer, who was the senator-elect in North Dakota. At the end of the day, those candidates, again, were in very red states. So there was an expectation they were going to win. But what really happened was the president came in and mobilized folks to ensure that while there was, let's just say, some concern on maybe a lot of independent voters' minds with regard to the activities that had taken place in the last 2 years, the reality is those base Republican voters did come out in great numbers and were able to overcome some of the massive number of new voters who came out to vote in every state across the United States, including those three that I mentioned. So we're pleased that those whom we supported were successful on the Senate side. Sorry that one of our main supporters was not, and that is Martha McSally from Arizona. She ran against, again, an outstanding candidate in Kyrsten Sinema, another member of the House of Representatives who ran in a very competitive race in a competitive state. And Representative Martha McSally seemed to have the momentum, but things started to really not go her way when the final ballots were counted in Maricopa County, which is Phoenix area. So at the end of the day, we were not as successful in Arizona, major club state, but we will work with Senator-elect Kyrsten Sinema to see if we can't reach some common ground to make sure that our issues that she supports are pushed forward. What about those issues? So I guess the $64,000 question is, with the Senate at 51-47, with, again, two races yet to be called, that one in Florida and the one race in Mississippi, which is going to a runoff election on November 27th, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with our issues? Well, I think the biggest answer there is that we're going to be in a little bit of a bind. Only because what we're going to find is the Senate may be very supportive of pro-club, pro-growth initiatives. We have many allies and champions in the Senate who are willing to step forward and do the work that we hope they would do. But we may find that a little more difficult to have happen in the United States House of Representatives. And that's simply because of what we've seen based on history. When Nancy Pelosi was Speaker years ago, I was here, plugging away at the National Club Association, and it was a difficult time for those kind of pro-growth issues to really make it through the Democratic perspective. And ultimately, that's going to, I think, be the same thing that happened and will happen in 2019 when the new Congress is sworn in. Look, we always work with both sides of the aisle, and we know we've got great friends on both sides of the aisle. But I think this political environment is going to be exceptionally difficult, and that's our biggest concern. It's not so much that the Democratic majority in the House of Representatives isn't interested in doing things like getting rid of the Cadillac tax in Obamacare. Union members and union organizations have consistently said that is an awful tax to levy against an individual who happens to have a health insurance policy that is pretty valuable. So Democrats don't like it. Certainly Republicans don't like it. It is a bipartisan issue. The difficulty is that we're talking about 2020. That's the next election cycle. And those in the House are going to hope and push to maintain their majority. That means they're not going to be working too much with this administration, especially as the president ramps up his reelection campaign. So I think that political dynamic is going to cause some consternation for any of us in the business community to get some legislation passed. If, however, we find that Speaker Pelosi and others are interested in sort of looking at doing more of the sort of infrastructure, the bipartisan measures, passing bipartisan measures that will really help the country, we may be successful. I'm not suggesting the Democrats don't want to do that. What I'm suggesting is politics. And surprise, surprise, politics is dirty, it's tough, and it kind of gets on people's nerves far too often. And when it's a presidential election year, those nerves are really frayed. So I think that's going to be our problem. We'll see what happens. We'll continue to push those allies on both sides of the aisle in both chambers to ensure that, in essence, they do what's right. I've always thought the best way for us to be successful is by passing legislation and moving America forward. When I ran for office, that was my thought. It wasn't, gee, I'll only work with my constituents who were supportive of me and forget all the rest, and I'll only do what they want to do, and that'll keep me elected. That wasn't my thought. My thought was, I'll get elected or reelected if I do the right thing, if I continue to move the country forward. So we hope that both the Democrats and the Republicans understand that now, especially after this election. We're given split government in the Congress, so they're going to have to work together. And if they don't, then it's going to be a real tough 2 years. And again, especially with the presidential election coming right around, you can imagine there's going to have to be, I guess, a real sit-down discussion between leaders in the House and leaders in the Senate from the Democratic side about how they want to pursue the next 2 years. That's going to be an interesting discussion to have. If it's legislate, that's going to be great. If it's investigate and really just present messaging bills that help the Democratic majority maintain that majority in 2020 and beyond, then I think, as I say, it's going to be a very tough time. And who knows? This is going to be an amazing presidential election year. I know we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but it's going to be an amazing presidential election year. I've got, at this point on my sort of crystal ball, probably 10 Democrats who have already expressed some interest in running for president in 2020. I know the president has begun his re-election campaign in earnest already, just right now. So it's going to be an exceptionally long election period for 2020. I hope everybody is excited, is ready, and strapped in, because it's going to be one hell of a ride. As always, Gabe, it's a pleasure to spend some time with you. I look forward to doing it again soon, and take care. Bye-bye.
To learn more about the National Club Association, please visit nationalclub.org.
Thanks so much for joining us on this edition of Private Club Radio. Wonderful to spend a little time with you today. Hope to catch you back here next week. And until then, here's to your membership success.
Private Club Radio is brought to you by Concert Golf Partners, helping to preserve and enhance private golf and country clubs. Concert Golf has the capital, expertise, and private club hospitality experience to help upscale private clubs achieving long-term success and membership growth. For 25 years, Concert Golf has allowed private club members to focus on simply enjoying their club. Visit concertgolfpartners.com to learn more about the recapitalization process.